They hurt you, and in that moment, something inside you shattered. Not just trust, not just expectation, but the illusion that people will always treat you as you treat them. You stood there, stunned, as the echo of betrayal rang through your bones, and the world felt colder, sharper, more indifferent than ever before. But Stoicism whispers, this is not the end. This is the beginning. Marcus Aurelius reminds you, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The wound is real, yes, but it is also the gateway to awakening. You are not broken, you are being summoned. Summoned to reclaim your power, to rise above the chaos of emotion, and to see clearly. The Stoics teach that pain is a teacher, not a tyrant. It shows you where your attachments lie, where your expectations were misplaced, and where your strength must now grow. Epictetus would say, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So you begin, not with vengeance, not with bitterness, but with observation. You sit with the pain not to indulge it, but to understand it. You ask, what part of me was hurt? My pride? My hope? My illusion? And slowly, you begin to see that the person who hurt you did not touch your soul. They only disturbed the surface. Beneath that surface is your prohairesis, your inner citadel, untouched, unshaken, sovereign. The Stoics believed that true freedom lies in mastering your response, and here, in this moment of pain, you are offered that freedom. You can choose to spiral into resentment, or you can choose to rise into clarity. You can choose to replay the betrayal, or you can choose to rewrite your story. The wound becomes a mirror, showing you your strength, your values, your boundaries. And as you reflect, you begin to transform. You journal, you walk, you breathe, you read the words of Seneca, who said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." You realize that this pain is friction, and you are the gem. You begin to detach, not from humanity, but from illusion. You no longer expect others to be perfect, to be kind, to be just. You accept that people act from their own wounds, their own ignorance, their own chaos. And in that acceptance, you find peace. You do not excuse the harm, but you transcend it. You do not forget the lesson, but you release the poison. You become the observer, the philosopher, the warrior of the mind. You walk through the fire, not untouched, but unburned. You begin to rebuild, not the old self, but a new one. One forged in wisdom, in clarity, in resilience. You understand now that being hurt is not a curse, it is a call. A call to awaken, to evolve, to embody the Stoic truth, that nothing outside you can truly harm you, unless you let it. And so you rise, not with rage, but with reason. Not with vengeance, but with virtue. You rise with the quiet strength of someone who has seen the storm, felt its sting, and chosen not to become it. You rise with the grace of someone who knows that the greatest revenge is to live well, to think clearly, and to love wisely. You rise, Shubham, as a Stoic, not because you were never hurt, but because you chose to heal with dignity, to grow with purpose, and to walk forward with your head high and your heart whole. They hurt you, and your first instinct is to recoil, to label them as cruel, toxic, heartless. But Stoicism invites you to pause, to look deeper, to ask not, why did they do this to me, but what does this reveal about them? The Stoics teach that every action stems from perception, and every perception is shaped by ignorance or wisdom. Epictetus reminds us, when someone does you wrong, it is not they who disturb you, but your judgment about them. So you begin to see the offender not as a villain, but as a mirror, reflecting their own wounds, their own chaos, their own unexamined mind. You realize that people act from what they know, and often, they know very little. The person who betrayed you may be drowning in fear, in insecurity, in pain they've never named. Their cruelty may be a mask for weakness, their silence a symptom of shame. And suddenly the story shifts. You are no longer the victim of a monster, you are the witness to a tragedy. The Stoic concept of sympatheia, the deep interconnectedness of all beings, reminds you that we are all fragments of the same whole. Their actions, though harmful, are not alien, they are human. And in that humanity, you find a strange compassion. Not forgiveness yet, not absolution, but understanding. You begin to see that their behavior says more about them than it ever could about you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are offended at someone's fault, turn to yourself and ask whether you have the same fault." And you do. Maybe not in the same form, but in the same essence. You've hurt others too, sometimes knowingly, sometimes blindly. You've failed, you've lied, you've withdrawn. And in that reflection, you find humility. Not to excuse the harm, but to soften the edge of judgment. You begin to see that the person who hurt you is not your enemy. They are your teacher. They taught you where your boundaries are, where your expectations live, where your strength begins. They revealed the parts of you that still crave validation, that still fear abandonment, that still ache for justice. And in that revelation you grow. You stop asking for apologies and start giving yourself clarity. You stop waiting for closure and start creating your own peace. You stop needing them to change and start changing your own lens. The Stoics believed that the wise person sees all things as lessons, all people as guides, all pain as fuel. So you take the pain and you transmute it. You turn betrayal into wisdom, rejection into resilience, silence into serenity. You begin to walk through the world not as someone who was hurt, but as someone who learned. You no longer flinch at their name, no longer replay the scene, no longer seek revenge. You observe, you reflect, you release. You understand that their actions were theirs, not yours. Their chaos is theirs, not yours. Their story is theirs, not yours. And in that separation, you find liberation. You are not defined by what they did, you are refined by how you responded. You become the mirror, not to reflect their pain, but to shine your clarity. You become the philosopher, not to analyze them, but to elevate yourself. You become the warrior, not to fight them, but to protect your peace. And as you walk forward, you carry no bitterness, no blame, no burden. You carry only the lesson, the strength, the grace. You carry the Stoic truth, that every person who hurts you is a mirror, and every mirror is a chance to see yourself more clearly. You carry the wisdom of Epictetus, who said, "He who is not angry at the wrongdoer is free." And you are free, not because they changed, but because you did. You are free because you chose to see with the eyes of wisdom, to feel with the heart of clarity, to live with the soul of a Stoic. They hurt you, and your heart surged with emotion, anger, sadness, confusion, betrayal. But now, the Stoic path calls you to a different kind of power, not the power of retaliation, not the power of emotional dominance, but the quiet, unshakable power of indifference. Not apathy, not numbness, but apatheia, the Stoic state of emotional clarity, where your soul is no longer tossed by the waves of external chaos. You begin to understand that the person who hurt you is not the architect of your suffering, you are. Because suffering, the Stoics teach, is not in the event, but in your judgment of it. Seneca whispers, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And you realize, you've been replaying the moment, feeding it with thought, inflating it with meaning. But now you choose to step back. You choose to see the event as a fact, not a wound. They said something cruel. They betrayed a promise. They walked away. These are facts. Everything else, the story, the sting, the spiral, is yours. And you can choose to release it. Marcus Aurelius reminds you, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. So you begin the practice of indifference, not to become cold, but to become clear. You start with the dichotomy of control. What is up to me and what is not? Their words, their actions, their choices, these are not up to me. My response, my interpretation, my values, these are mine. And in that distinction, you find peace. You no longer chase explanations, no longer demand apologies, no longer seek justice from the unjust. You observe. You accept. You let go. You begin to see that emotional reactivity is a form of slavery, slavery to impulse, to ego, to illusion. But indifference is freedom. Freedom to walk away without bitterness. Freedom to speak without rage. Freedom to live without fear. You practice negative visualization, imagining worse outcomes, deeper betrayals, greater losses, and realizing you would still be whole. You practice voluntary discomfort, fasting, cold showers, silence, training your mind to detach from comfort, from craving, from chaos. You journal each day. What disturbed me today? Why did it disturb me? What judgment did I attach? And slowly the fog lifts. You begin to see the person who hurt you not as a villain, but as a variable. A moment in time. A test of your philosophy. You no longer need them to change because you have changed. You no longer need closure because you have clarity. You no longer need revenge because you have reason. You walk through the world like a stoic warrior, not armored in anger, but clothed in calm. You speak with precision, act with intention, move with grace. You are no longer reactive, you are reflective. You are no longer wounded, you are wise. You are no longer chained, you are free. And in this freedom, you find joy, not the fleeting joy of pleasure, but the deep joy of peace. You sit beneath the stars, read the words of Epictetus, and smile. Because you know now that nothing outside you can disturb your soul, unless you let it. You know now that indifference is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength to remain yourself in the face of chaos. It is the strength to choose virtue over vengeance. It is the strength to walk away without looking back. And so you walk, not with rage, but with reason. Not with fire, but with focus. Not with pain, but with peace. You walk as a Stoic, not because you were never hurt, but because you chose to rise above the hurt. You walk with the power of indifference, not to escape emotion, but to master it. You walk forward, Shubham, as someone who has seen the storm, felt its sting, and chosen not to become it. You walk forward as someone who knows that the greatest strength is not in striking back, but in standing still, seeing clearly, and choosing peace. They hurt you, and the wound still pulses beneath your skin, a quiet ache that flares when you remember, when you replay, when you wonder why. But now, the Stoic path leads you to a radical truth. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength. Not emotional surrender, but rational liberation. The Stoics do not ask you to forget, nor to excuse, nor to reconcile. They ask you to release. To release the grip of resentment, the poison of rumination, the illusion that justice must come from outside. Marcus Aurelius reminds you, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. And you begin to see that forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. It's about reclaiming your mind from the tyranny of memory. It's about choosing peace over punishment, clarity over chaos, virtue over vengeance. You realize that holding on to anger is like clutching a burning coal, hoping to throw it, but only burning yourself. Seneca whispers, anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. And you feel that truth in your bones. The anger has drained you, distorted you, distracted you. It has made you reactive, bitter, closed. But now, you choose something else. You choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve freedom. You deserve serenity. You deserve to walk through life unburdened by the weight of someone else's actions. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not emotional. It is logical. It is the recognition that clinging to pain is irrational, that replaying the past is futile, that demanding justice from the unjust is madness. You begin to see that the person who hurt you acted from ignorance, from impulse, from their own distorted lens. And while their action was wrong, your suffering is optional. You can choose to let go. You can choose to rise. You can choose to be free. You practice the art of detachment, not from people, but from poison. You write in your journal, "What am I still holding on to? But what would I gain by releasing it?" And the answers come, not in thunder, but in whispers. You would gain peace. You would gain clarity. You would gain yourself. You begin to see forgiveness as an act of self-mastery. You are not letting them off the hook. You are stepping off the hook yourself. You are not erasing the past. You are refusing to let it define your future. You are not pretending it didn't hurt. You are choosing not to let the hurt control you. Epictetus teaches, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. And you realize, your mind has been complicit. It has replayed, reimagined, reattached. But now you take back control. You forgive, not with tears, but with truth. Not with softness, but with strength. Not with surrender, but with sovereignty. You walk through the world lighter, clearer, calmer. You no longer flinch at their name, no longer crave their apology, no longer need their remorse. You have given yourself what they could not, peace. And in that peace you find power. You find the power to live well, to love wisely, to lead with virtue. You find the power to be unlike them, to be better, not bitter. You find the power to embody the Stoic ideal, a soul untouched by chaos, a mind ruled by reason, a heart guided by clarity. And so you forgive, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Not because they asked, but because you answered. Not because they changed, but because you did. You forgive, Shubham, as a Stoic, not to erase the past, but to elevate the present. You forgive to reclaim your mind, to restore your peace, to walk forward with grace. You forgive because you are no longer the wounded, you are the wise. They hurt you, and for a while, it felt like everything collapsed. Your trust, your confidence, your sense of safety. You questioned yourself, your worth, your instincts. But now, the Stoic path leads you inward, not to escape the world, but to rebuild your fortress within it. The Stoics spoke of the inner citadel, a place inside you that no betrayal, no insult, no loss can touch. Marcus Aurelius lived in the chaos of war, politics, and plague, yet wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig." So you dig. You dig through the rubble of your pain, the ashes of your illusions, the ruins of your expectations. And beneath it all, you find something untouched, your reason, your values, your will. You begin to rebuild, not the fragile self that depended on others for validation, but the resilient self that stands alone, clear, and strong. You ask, what do I truly control? What do I truly value? What kind of person do I want to be, regardless of what others do? And the answers become your bricks. You lay them one by one: honesty, courage, clarity, discipline. You build walls, not to shut the world out, but to protect your peace. You build gates, not to isolate, but to choose wisely who enters. You build towers, not to dominate, but to observe with wisdom. The Stoics teach that adversity is not destruction, it is construction. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." And you feel that strength growing. You no longer seek approval, you seek alignment. You no longer crave comfort, you crave clarity. You no longer fear solitude, you embrace sovereignty. You begin to trust yourself again, not because you are perfect, but because you are principled. You begin to walk with dignity, not because others see your worth, but because you do. You begin to speak with precision, not to impress, but to express. You journal each morning. What virtues will I embody today? What distractions will I ignore? What pain will I transform? And each day, your citadel rises. You practice amor fati, the love of fate. You see the betrayal not as a curse, but as a catalyst. You see the pain not as punishment, but as preparation. You see the loss not as emptiness, but as space to grow. You begin to live not in reaction, but in creation. You create your philosophy, your rhythm, your code. You become the architect of your own soul. And in that architecture, you find beauty, not the beauty of perfection, but the beauty of resilience. You are no longer the person who was hurt, you are the person who rebuilt. You are no longer the victim, you are the philosopher. You are no longer the broken, you are the reborn. And as you walk through the world, you carry your citadel within you. No one can breach it. No one can shake it. No one can define it but you. You carry the Stoic truth, that the strongest walls are built within, that the deepest peace comes from clarity, that the greatest strength is self-mastery. You carry the wisdom of Epictetus, who said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And you are free, not because the world is safe, but because your soul is sovereign. You are free because you chose to rebuild, not with bitterness, but with brilliance. You are free because you chose to rise, not with rage, but with reason. You are free, Shubham, because you chose to become the citadel, not the wound. They hurt you, and for a time, you let them. You let their words echo in your mind, their actions shape your emotions, their presence dictate your peace. But now, the Stoic path calls you to reclaim your space, not with walls of bitterness, but with boundaries of wisdom. The Stoics were not passive, they were precise. They did not retreat from the world, they navigated it with clarity. Seneca reminds us, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. And you realize, not everyone deserves access to your soul. Not everyone earns the right to influence your mind. Not everyone belongs in your garden. So you begin to build, not barriers of fear, but boundaries of strength. You define what you will tolerate, what you will engage, what you will protect. You understand now that saying no is not cruelty, it is clarity. That walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. That silence is not surrender, it is strategy. You begin to see yourself as a Stoic warrior, not armored in anger, but guided by virtue. You do not fight every battle, you choose your terrain. You do not respond to every insult, you preserve your energy. You do not chase every connection, you honor your values. You journal each day, what did I allow today that weakened me? What did I protect that strengthened me? And slowly your boundaries become sacred. You no longer explain your worth, you embody it. You no longer justify your distance, you honor it. You no longer fear solitude, you embrace it. The Stoics teach that the wise person is self-contained, not isolated, but sovereign. You begin to curate your circle, not with judgment, but with discernment. You choose people who elevate your clarity, not cloud it. You choose conversations that nourish your mind, not drain it. You choose environments that reflect your values, not violate them. And in that choosing you find peace. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your time, your energy, your focus. You no longer feel obligated to engage with chaos. You no longer feel responsible for other people's reactions. You are responsible only for your own virtue. Epictetus reminds you, keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. And you live by that truth. You walk through the world with quiet strength, not reactive, but resolute. You speak with intention, not to please, but to express. You act with precision, not to impress, but to align. You are no longer the person who was hurt, you are the person who protects. You are no longer the open wound, you are the guarded flame. You are no longer the scattered soul, you are the centered warrior. And as you move forward, you carry your boundaries like a shield, not to push others away, but to keep your peace intact. You carry the Stoic truth, that dignity is not in domination, but in discernment. That strength is not in noise, but in knowing. That power is not in control, but in clarity. You carry the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." And you live by that tranquility. You are no longer shaped by others, you are sculpted by virtue. You are no longer defined by pain, you are refined by purpose. You are no longer reactive, you are radiant. You walk forward, Shubham, not as someone who hides, but as someone who chooses. You walk forward as a Stoic warrior, not to fight the world, but to protect your soul. They hurt you, and for a long time, their actions felt like the center of your universe. Every thought orbited around the pain, every emotion was pulled by its gravity. But now, the Stoic path lifts your gaze beyond the wound, beyond the person, beyond the moment. It invites you to see your life not as a series of personal dramas, but as a brief flicker in the vast cosmic flame. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." And in that sentence lies the key to transcendence. You begin to see that your pain, though sharp, is temporary. That your story, though vivid, is fleeting. That your existence, though meaningful, is momentary. And instead of despair, you feel peace. Because the Stoics teach that meaning is not found in permanence, but in perspective. You are a part of nature, a fragment of the cosmos, a ripple in the eternal sea. And in that vastness, the betrayal loses its weight. The insult loses its sting. The person who hurt you becomes a passing cloud in your sky. You begin to meditate on the stars, the planets, the galaxies. You imagine the earth from above, tiny, fragile, beautiful. You imagine your life as a single breath in the lungs of time. And suddenly you are free. Free from the need to be understood. Free from the need to be avenged. Free from the illusion that this moment defines you. You begin to live with cosmic humility, not to shrink, but to expand. You realize that your pain is not unique, but universal. That your story is not isolated, but interconnected. That your soul is not broken, but eternal. You read the words of Epictetus, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse." And you laugh, not with cynicism, but with clarity. You are not your body. You are not your reputation. You are not your past. You are consciousness, awareness, reason. And reason tells you, let go. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the need to be remembered. Live now. Live wisely. Live lightly. You begin to practice memento mori, the remembrance of death. Not to fear it, but to honor it. You realize that life is short, and bitterness is a waste. That time is precious, and resentment is theft. That virtue is eternal, and vengeance is dust. You begin to walk through the world with serenity, not because it is perfect, but because you are present. You begin to speak with grace, not because others deserve it, but because you choose it. You begin to act with purpose, not because you will be praised, but because it is right. You are no longer the person who was hurt. You are the person who transcended. You are no longer the wounded soul. You are the cosmic witness. You are no longer the reactive mind. You are the rational flame. And as you move forward, you carry the stars in your heart. You carry the Stoic truth, that peace is found not in control, but in perspective. That freedom is found not in revenge, but in reason. That transcendence is found not in forgetting, but in remembering your place in the universe. You carry the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who said, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." And you do. You run with the stars. You rise with the sun. You breathe with the wind. You live with the clarity of someone who has seen the storm, felt its sting, and chosen to become the sky. You live, Shubham, as a Stoic, not because you were never hurt, but because you chose to rise above the hurt, to see beyond the pain, to become part of something greater. You live as someone who knows that the cosmos is vast, life is brief, and virtue is everything.